Thank you very much, Christopher, for this very kind introduction, and thanks also to Irene and all the staff of the ERA for inviting me to today's session here in the morning, more on product services works, on the, basically you heard about health, IT, and I have energy, and energy is so huge that I had to focus on certain aspects there. So I would like to invite you on a quick tour across Europe about the experiences made by practitioners, by public procurers that might be a small municipality that tried out something below the threshold, or that might be a national procurement authority that continues doing their huge investments into sustainable energy or sustainable energy using products, services or works. You see here a couple of logos right at the front of this page. ICLEI celebrated 20 years of sustainable public procurement last year. So we have been founded 1992, and since also 1996 we are got a mandate by our members to work more closely in the field of public procurement with a strong emphasis in the beginning on green aspects, environmental aspects, but then later also about social aspects and also about the economic details such as life cycle costing aspects. We will hear about this later. Throughout those 20 years, it was always a pleasure to follow also the developments that we have been listening to into details on the procurement directives as one of them, but also on the global landscape with the Government Procurement Agreement Act, and things like this do influence also our perception when it comes to energy, about green public procurement. We provided assistance to public authorities throughout this time with over 150 projects, 100 conferences, seminars and workshops. 2,000 people were approximately trained from us. Most of them we trained trainers, so because we see there additional benefit and snowball effect. 300 cities supported. We work in many, many countries. I come from the European office, but we have 15 offices worldwide. Currently, for instance, establishing a sustainable green public procurement program in the East Asia region, cooperating along with China and Korea in this regard. And also we, in the last couple of years, we more and more moved over to calculating and supporting calculations for the benefits of green public procurement. And this is, of course, very important when we're talking about the energy sector here. We're talking about policies around climate change mitigation and adaptation, and also the contribution that basically public procurement or the spending of public money can make here. So it's important in actual numbers what CO2 has been saved, just to start with. We formed a network. So ICLEI is a network of around 1,300 public authorities and their associations. And we decided 2 years ago, together with the Seoul Metropolitan Government, that it's time to look into the lead cities of the world and their activities towards sustainable public procurement. So together with Seoul, we formed the Global Lead City Network on Sustainable Procurement. And this is also a contribution to the United Nations 10 years framework program on sustainable consumption and production, where ICLEI is also the co-chair of the SPP program. This kicked off, and those cities, I just list them here, they are really looking into targets and setting targets towards energy using products, towards electricity, just to stay with our topic here. And some of them say also on an aggregated level that they want to reach a certain percentage of sustainable public procurement by a certain year. Just to highlight one here, this is the city of Helsinki. They have a target of 100% sustainable public procurement by 2020. I would say very ambitious. They released a report from the achievements until 2015, where basically they reached 61%, which is impressive, I would say, in a period where they started 5 years ago with maybe 20% of the amount of all purchases. And these type of aspects we do discuss together on this network, on a political, but also on the practitioners level. So together with the public procurers, with the head of procurement departments, we sit together and exchange there from Auckland to Warsaw. And we have also a European network that I recommend you taking a look at. It's called Procure Plus. It's established since 12 years, and it's a similar thing here. And in this network, we are moving more and more towards also thinking about the aspects on innovation procurement. So what are basically ways to achieve better quality of the outcome of a product? And this relates a lot to discussions related performance-based specifications, the use of award criteria, quality over fast procedures, the quality of a product or the quality of a service. And it's exciting times at this moment, because I still have discussions with public procurers from all across Europe that say, oh, award criteria, no, that's very dangerous. Or the other way, early market engagement. No, I'm not allowed to talk to the market. These type of aspects, when we are talking about energy-using products or services, are key aspects when we are talking about innovative aspects there. So this network also provides, again, a bit of a safe ground for public procurers to discuss about those things and also to exchange on what went well and what not. This is very much linked to the strategic aspects of procurement. Here just two examples. For instance, the government of Flanders and the city of Ghent, they are putting procurement at the heart of strategic decision-making. And for instance, in Flanders, they have released the strategic, there we go, strategic and coordinated policy for public procurement, it's called. And these type of documents are very, very important when we're talking about seeing also the energy sector in this related and a more strategic approach. It has been said, I would repeat, guidance is out there. It's just sometimes that public authorities want to have their own guidance, so rewrite it. But it's out there. There are a lot of case studies out there. I just brought actually 3 guides here. Yeah, so that's the 3 guides. They do not only exist there on the screen, but they are also physically available. Also, you can freely download them also from the internet. And I will just give a couple of copies here also to ERI. If you need more, just let me know. This is official European Commission guidance on buying green that has been written by ICLEI together with public procurement and others from the UK. And it features a lot of examples also from the energy sector in there, from electricity over energy-using products and services. And the second one is our Procure Plus manual. It has been rewritten last year and launched in October. And this is, I would recommend for beginners, just to look into what are the easy steps to do sustainable public procurement. And then I took also something where it's more important for utilities directors and electricity and development corporation. And it's a toolbox sustainable procurement, a guide on how to include aspects of sustainability in public procurement procedures for financial cooperation projects that we wrote for the KfW Bank of Germany. And here we are, of course, talking about different dimensions in a small municipality in terms of investments and volumes. Just to mention. I started with energy, broad sector, a lot of things to apply, a lot of aspects also. So let's get a closer look into this. We have, for instance, here some recommendations that I took from the Procure Plus manual about energy efficient and low carbon procurement and how it's applied in practice. We can, at different stages of the procurement procedure, include criteria and aspects related to energy. And we listed here a bit of the ideas where it makes more sense to listen and use them in the technical specification or in the award criteria, or more for the contract performance. So this is all related also, again, to the question about reliable data. So yesterday we talked a bit about, when I'm talking about energy using product, about electricity, what type of means of proof and certifications do I get? Well, how is my verification scheme that I want to apply? And later also when I get them, energy using product or get the supply of electricity, how do I make use of certain checks and verifications during the contract management phase? So that's, just imagine you are purchasing something, somebody tells you it applies, basically it fulfills the criteria, for instance, Energy Star, and you open the box and there's no Energy Star label on the computer. So what to do in this type of things and these aspects? And there we also have one or the other case and interesting discussions with our public authorities that we are taking there. What are the measures? You simply accept. You are basically make use of contract clauses. Do you have those type of contract clauses in place up front? That's important aspects. We have here, for instance, two examples that are featured. That's one is a big one, one is a small one. One is a framework for energy efficiency in Italy. That's Concept, which is one of the main purchasing organizations in Italy, a central purchasing body. And they have a national framework contract for public lighting services for around 150 Italian public authorities with a volume, with a huge volume, because only this contract using energy efficiency criteria has led to a reduction of 30 million euro, thanks to energy savings of around 20%. We calculated this also in terms of tons of CO2 equivalent, because this is important also to show the impact that public procurement or the right decisions of using green criteria in this case can have. They also used a very interesting contracting model, then it's the performance contract model that is more and more frequent nowadays in Italy but also in Catalonia. In Turku in Finland, they went for 100% renewable electricity, and it's a nice example. They purchased this. It was also easy for the supply market to supply this because, guess what? They have hydropower there since decades. It's basically even cheaper than the average other electricity mix. So actually here you had a very nice impact. But on this aspect, about 100% renewable energy, I will come back in a second. Talking about basically impact and mainstreaming, I think it's very important to mention that those type of things, talking about energy using products or services that support also reduce energy use or purchasing the right sources in terms of climate change and mitigation measures. You need to show also that this can work in practice not only for a huge organization, and this can be done by any public authority. That was a name from a project that we started 2013, and we together formed a consortium of 18 partners. You can see some logos here. Just for instance to mention, we have here the Federal Procurement Agency of Germany together with the Competence Center, Sustainable Public Procurement. We have the Federal Procurement Agency of Austria. We have Concept. We have a Western region in Portugal. We have the region around Rome. We have the Netherlands, Rijkswaterstaat, the Ministry for Infrastructure and Environment. So huge buyers together with expert partners. And over the 3 years, they worked together and had an aim to significantly increase the implementation of GPP within the target countries and also within the organizations. both in short term, so over the 3 years, but also setting the ground that these type of procedures are in place for the future. So we did capacity building and tendering, basically, support, direct advice to the tenders. And the impact, we have 113 described, 113 tenders, and for, I think, 109 of them, we have really described the procedures that they have taken, the impact they've created, the criteria they used, and the named contact. So when you have any question about this type of cases, you can call them, write them an email. And we also calculated the impact. And there, I just throw this number in. It's 922,932 tons of CO2 equivalent that have been saved via those tenders. We also trained people, had different help desks set up and support also with the calculations. But to get a bit of a feeling what it means, this number, this is basically equal to 184,586 households annual consumption in the EU. And that's something that you can communicate to somebody where you had an impact created. It's funny enough, only 15 oil tankers. So this proved to me very interesting that an oil tanker has a lot of oil in it, and actually very huge. So that also we translated in some other catchy things, like take here Rijkswaterstaat on the NAF in the Netherlands. They had a reconstruction of the A12 motorway and used there also in the award criteria a process where they where basically those that had a less impact in terms of CO2 emissions received bonus points. And they saved 8,944 tons of CO2 in this contract that goes over 50 years, so basically the maintenance time. And this is the same as 6,880 car journeys from Paris to Berlin. No? Just imagine a car driving this distance. I also said this was short-term, but also long-term goals. And our buyers also looked into the future in terms of pre-procurement, what is coming up, what are the plans, what is upcoming framework contracts, what will be the needs, and calculated basically what they will save over the next 3 years. And it's 650,000 tons of CO2, and with investments close to 7 billion euro that will be made there. By the way, this is around, it was 6 billion euro, the investments on the other side. Major part of this goes into infrastructure. That's a commitment, and then also very interesting for those organizations to go through certain calculations. So part of those contracts were electricity contracts. And they were electricity contracts where basically those public authorities asked for a certain percentage of renewable energy sources, ranging from 20%, we have one case in Catalonia, to 100%, like the one in Turku in Finland, similar to these. And they are using basically as a reference point the existing GEO scheme, guarantees of origin. So I would like to bring to this group here one aspect and one thought that we have together with partners and public authorities, and I would be keen to hear your opinion on this also later in the discussion, when we're talking about the idea to have more renewable energy sources available on the market. So the actual capacity has been increased. And my question is, can a public authority, via a public procurement scheme, be a driver towards this or not? It's an open question. And if yes, basically what would be the mechanism they could use for this? Let me just start a bit with the starting point. In public authorities across Europe can buy electricity produced from 100% renewable energy sources, no problem. Basically, you can ask this everywhere in the EU. You will always find suppliers that can supply this to you because it's a European market, it's a liberalized market, no problem. The GEO scheme behind helps with this. problem from a more policy point of view is that the explicit demand is small compared, resulting in immense oversupply. Just to name this in terms of percentages, in Spain, the percentage of renewable energy sources on the electricity mix is around 25%, but the explicit demand for renewable energy is 0.1%. So, what happens? This may lead to a situation where an additional demand from a consumer, such as a public body, will not lead at all to an increase in the actual renewable energy sources electricity generation, because it can be easily satisfied with reallocating. Somebody else then doesn't get the renewable energy sources because they have also not asked for this, it's fine. So my question here, this would change when a public authority could explicitly ask the supplier to offer new capacity. And that's a discussed additionality principle. How can this be done legally? We have one example here from the city of Lorient in France. They explicitly went for renewable electricity for 10 buildings, schools. And they explicitly mentioned there also the additionality principle, and they linked this to their objectives. This is very small contracts. We're talking about 70,000 euro here, but still it was an attempt for them to show to the market what they want. Important is here the link, of course, to the subject matter. They worked a lot on linking it to the city's policies and programs, statutes, degrees, and laws in place, and also to the education part. Right? I've seen subject matters that are horrible in terms of sustainable public procurement because they say, I want electricity, that's it. No further explanations or descriptions or links. This subject matter actually is very detailed. Still, for me, it raises a couple of questions. Could they do this? What can they really establish this link to the subject matter strongly, so that they have basically included here this environmental awareness program to be performed in the schools, which will use the electricity. So there are aspects in this contract that link to this. But I would not be sure that this is legally sound in terms of linking it to the subject matter. A second example I've taken that goes in the complete different direction. We are talking here about the Dutch railways. They are the largest electricity consumer in the Netherlands, and they have contract climate neutral. They have a policy, a strategy, climate neutral railroad electricity, 2015 to 2025, and linked to this basically, they have a contract. They went through preliminary market consultation in general, of course, but also with a specific aim of fostering additionality. So they were asking potential suppliers of the electricity about what is basically your growth path, what is your investment path, what can you basically confirm that will be happening. And we are talking here about a time frame of 10 years. They asked for GOs from 100% RESE. They included wind, water, sun, but limited the amount of biomass that you can do. It's also not so much here the focus I want to take. Interesting enough, they use MEET and performance-based criteria. So, for instance, they calculated the current electricity mix and the current related CO2 emissions for the electricity they are currently purchasing, put this as a baseline and said, we need to get better. You need to offer something that is better. And the better, the less CO2, the more likely you will get the tender. Interesting aspect, I would say there, but still does not guarantee additionality. So they went a next step. Took a next step. So GEOs for a period of 10 years. So by 2024, the latest, all GEOs should derive from plants which have a commissioning date not earlier than 2014. So means by 2025, the oldest plants should have 10 years. Yeah? There's an age requirement in there. By 2018, the minimum requirement for GEOs from new plants was 20% of all electricity supplied. And suppliers were asked to offer a growth path here towards those 100% at the end. And if you would offer 100% earlier than 2024, then you would get another bonus. At the core of all these criteria, award criteria, is the age of a power plant, and the question, can this be linked to the subject matter? And basically, they argue the case here with the Bienstrom case, the famous case from 2003. They went through three aspects, key aspects there under the check, if this would fulfill the criteria. So the first thing is the criteria establish a quantitative connection to the amount of RESE, or relate in other ways to the features of a subject matter. They said, yeah, that's here the case. And the criteria promote an increase in the contribution of renewable energy sources to electricity production in the internal market for electricity. That's also the case here. And the criteria do not give rise to an unjustified discrimination of tenderers. And especially on the last point, I think we will see if this will stay like this, but the early market consultation in this sense gave them an indication of what they could ask for. So basically, they use this mechanism to identify, could there be a potential discrimination or not? A very interesting case. It leads me a bit to, they work with the GEO scheme, and it leads me to a last question. I have an open question, and it relates to the use of labels, as laid out in Article 43 of Directive 2014-24 and 61 and the 25. I listed here just a couple of random electricity labels on the market. They have different scheme behind. One or the other might be questionable that they fulfill the underlying requirements of Article 43 or respective Article 61. But still, I hardly see those criteria used in public tenders. I've seen this in North Rhine-Westphalia with a big purchasing agency in the building sector there. They were referring to TÜV Nord criteria there. I've seen this also in Scandinavian countries to refer to their schemes. But it's very rarely happening. And I would be interested in the question, do you have more cases that use actually electricity labels in public procurement? And with this open question, I would like to thank you for your attention. And if you would like to have more resources, articles, opinions, just visit our website. Thank you very much.